Hey everybody, I'm Dave Rubin, and today on the Rubin Report, I'll be chatting with Dr. Ron Paul about last week's censorship of his Facebook page, the incoming Biden administration, the outgoing Trump administration, and the state of liberty in the U.S. in 2021. But first, I want to tell you about Bonner Private Wine. Anyone here like to have a drink once in a while? I think you guys know I do. I've got a bottle of wine in my hand right now, and I'd like to share with you how to make that drink 10 times healthier. Down in Argentina, they make this really dark red wine from Malbec grapes grown at 9,000 feet. They've lab tested these wines and found that they contain up to 10 times the levels of a nutrient called resveratrol. Resveratrol is powerful stuff. It pops up again and again in studies on longevity, heart health, and brain health. These wines also have 90% less sugar, fewer chemicals, and fewer additives. Plus, if you love steak and BBQ as much as I do, you'll be happy to hear that red wine has been shown to actually make red meat healthier. But the best part is the wine taste with notes of blackberry, leather, smoke, and a little dark cherry. Today, the guys at freethinkerwine.com are giving you 50% off their best Malbecs and 50% off shipping. Wine makes a great gift, even if it's just a gift to yourself. Just visit freethinkerwine.com today. That's freethinkerwine.com. And now back to me. All right. Today, I am absolutely thrilled, guys. This has been about 5-6 years in the making. We tried to do it in person a couple times. It didn't quite work out. You may know that this guy's not thrilled with the TSA, and neither am I. But finally, I am talking to author, physician, retired congressman, and former presidential candidate, Dr. Ron Paul. Finally, welcome to the Rubin Report.
Thank you, Dave. Real nice to be with you.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you. We've obviously wanted to have this conversation for quite some time. I think you know a bit about my sort of awakening into the freedom space, the liberty space. But to have you on right now, the day before the Biden administration comes in, we're wrapping up the Trump administration, and with so much going on with tech censorship and everything else, I thought the timing would be just perfect. So let's just start. Last week, out of nowhere, your Facebook page was suspended. Now, I believe it's back, but this happened with no warning, and you've been warning about the power of big tech for quite some time.
Of course, they said there was plenty of warning. We warned you, and when we inquired about it, he said you failed to follow your various warnings, well, which wasn't true. They never warned us at all. But the reason they said was that I don't follow community standards. And I didn't know about community standards. I wasn't taught that in college or medical school or any place. I thought, oh, well, that's his public thing. You're a public official now. I said, well, should I get my community standards from Fox or from CNN or MSNBC? Where did I find these answers? And I said, besides, why are you bugging me? I'm no threat to you. I'm just a little outfit, poking a little bit of fun at them. But they, of course, just don't want anybody to disagree with. If you're dealing with an idea and you come across, he might be telling the truth, then they know you're a danger.
Yeah. What do you make of the extraordinary power that big tech has over us right now, that the founders could have never imagined a structure so big, sort of above the government, that controls all of our information?
Well, it's terrible, but the answer is not simplistic. It's not like just do this and we can get back to a free market. I had to look at that carefully, and I don't like it any more than anybody else, but I don't like the principle of writing one regulation and telling them what they can do and monitor everything they do. That certainly isn't a libertarian answer to solving this problem. But if one looks at how the internet developed and try to understand where did it come from, is it an outgrowth of free markets and voluntarism? And I came to the conclusion, absolutely not. the internet came about some other way, and there was a lot of financing. A lot of financing still continues. They get legal protection, for what they do. So I would say that the market has been pushed aside, and that's where the trouble comes from. And that we should think about how do you return to the market, which is not easy. But I think there's enough technology to make it available to those of us that would like to have a different outlet for our views. And I think the only way I can think of is, the principle is go toward as much private property as you can and exclude, government regulations and rules, and also to emphasize the issue of voluntary agreements. The contract is what saves the marketplace. Voluntary arrangement, get together, agree on it, and have a voluntary arrangement. And that doesn't exist with it now, and they don't want to have any part about it. All they want to do is gang up on us and act in concert. So all of the big tech companies get together, and then they can pile on. They're very, very powerful. But I tell you what, if you get enough people who believe in something else, and other people use their ingenuity and their ability, I think we can provide the competition that is necessary.
Yeah, you're speaking my language. That's exactly why I started locals.com, and I think we're talking to your guys about it this week. Did you find that you saw a lot of libertarians in the last couple of weeks sort of jumping ship on that idea? However, because they go, well, this thing is just too big, and if you can blow up Amazon servers and knock Parler off, that the very idea of competition sort of doesn't exist anymore. I heard a lot of that from libertarians. Yeah. I always believe that the market and human ingenuity will solve things.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to describe it. It's sort of like they disappeared. They're not joining the gang and making fun of us. It's just that they don't want to get into the debate. It's too complicated for them. And I sort of felt that way at the beginning, because the first thing I wanted to do was not interfere. And but then I also accepted the principle that I've sort of observed over the many years, is that when you have trouble like this, it usually involves the government. There's been a couple very good books about monopolies and powerful organizations, and almost always, if not always, if you have a monopoly, it's going to need the government to establish it or protect it. So the monopolies don't come as a consequence of free market. The main thing there to prevent that from happening is free entry, that you can't prohibit entry. But that's what we're all facing now, that I want to get our information out, is that the entry is getting more and more difficult. Because I'm going to let the smart people that know how to work this technology, and I want to look at it, and I want to help, and I want to encourage it. But I also want to emphasize the issue of private property and voluntarism, because I believe the answer is there. And I think what we have now is an outgrowth of way too much government, and big tech gets a lot of funding. They make a lot of money off this thing, and I would think that's a good way to maybe limit to what they can do is don't do business with them. Why should the taxpayer have to do business with these companies? And of course, that's when the people in Washington just crumble, because I suspect Dave, that both Republicans and Democrats tend to get along with these big corporations. They may fight out in the open, but it's bipartisan. When I make my complaints, I always make the point, whether it's monetary policy, spending, deficits, war, or whatever, very bipartisan. No matter what the noise you hear, the bipartisanship is very strong, and that's the reason that we have a problem, is that bipartisanship endorses these principles of interventionism and inflationism and constant wars, and too many people trust in the bipartisan system that they can watch each other. Just gets going through these elections. It sounds like only two people at loggerheads. But do the Republicans ever cut back spending? No, they usually increase it. So this is the reason people have to look at the issues, and rather than accepting the idea that this is a narrow partisan fight that's going on, because that's not true.
Yeah, somehow they say they disagree on everything, but they always agree on spending more and more wars, although as Trump's presidency ends tomorrow, he did not start any new wars. So to sort of recap what Trump did, I mean, I assume you're happy with some cut taxes, getting rid of some regulation, kicking some stuff back to the states, not going to war. That all fits the libertarian lens. But spending did increase. I'm sure you have some other problems with Trump. Where do you grade these 4 years from a liberty perspective?
Well, not real well, but compared to what? Compared to others, compared
We didn't go to war.
Obama,
That's pretty good, right?
Yeah. Well, but some of the things that are established, I would say that we're more on the verge of a big, serious war with Iran. So those things like that bother me. But no, I would taking the issue that I've spent the most time on in my political career, and I think it's so important because it's so pervasive, and that is the monetary issue in the Federal Reserve. He was a disaster there in a friendly way type of thing, but he when he needed the Fed to do something, he was a powerful person. He had a lot of influence, and when the establishment and probably the deep state was the little thing, he's gone too much. I mean, this thing is in shambles. We have to start, winding down our balance sheet and that kind of thing. But he said, you're going to get these interest rates down, and he was tough and strong, and he prevailed. So in some ways, if you look at Trump, and I agree with the positives that you mentioned, but if you look at what Trump did, he spoke sort of like a modern monetary theorist, of what, it's back to helicopter money. Give them what they need. It's $6 trillion of debt in this past year, and it's still coming. But now the Republicans, they'll go back to their roots. Now they will be Biden deficits, and we can't allow that to happen.
Do you sense that sort of the biggest problem for libertarians to get the messaging out is that people seem unable to understand that it's about spending, that the government is always spending more and more, that it's just set up to always spend more and more and more. And even if they cut taxes a little bit or they throw us $600 a person, that it comes with a package that puts us in that much more debt, that just talking about spending and debt, it's not sexy enough to sort of get the ideas out there in a mainstream way?
Yes, and it's very temporary. I consider it's like trying to treat a drug addict by just giving him more drugs and he feels better. Excuse me. But that's what happens when you put the money out there. That sort of helps and makes the economy feel better. I thought our current crisis started in 99, not in 2000. And that was when the balance sheet was in big trouble, and it was evident that things were going to turn down if they didn't really, really pump. And they capitulated, and they did it. And you say, well, if you took the other side of the argument, yeah, but didn't he save the day? Didn't that really rally? If you'd have done nothing, wouldn't that have led to a lot of correction? Yeah, probably would have, but it would have probably been all over by now. But they prevented the bankruptcy, but they delayed the inevitable big bankruptcy because they wanted to flood the market, with the money, and they could tide it over. It temporarily helps, and the drug addict feels better. So there was no hesitation at all. It's never been done before, and now we have a financial bubble bigger than any other time in our history, is the way I see it.
Right. So now, with that in mind, going into a Biden administration where they're, promising all sorts of stuff, and we know we're going to see a massive expansion of government, and half of the swamp people are all coming back, and there'll be no program that's too big. I mean, you can't be very hopeful at the moment, right?
Well, vaguely so. I'm always going to remain hopeful, or I'd have to do something else, other than trying to tell people there's hope in our message. And I know you have hope in our message. But the big thing is getting that message out and getting people to understand it. No, I see it as an opportunity. Vietnam War was a horror until the people spoke out and the Vietnam War ended. But what about, I remember the Cold War very, very well. I've studied that. I was drafted in 1962. And I was in the service for 5 years. And that was the height of the Cold War. But nobody back then even hinted that they thought, well, don't sweat it, folks. It's no big deal. The Soviet system doesn't work. It'll fail, and it's going to disappear. I never dreamed that 1989 would arrive. In 1990, the wall would come down. And all of a sudden, we had a wonderful opportunity. We had improvement, but unfortunately, the world went along with our interventionism, inflationism, and Federal Reserve stuff, and having deficit. But I'll tell you, I was in the Air Force, and there was a lot of preparations being made to have a nuclear exchange. I was drafted, during the Cuban crisis. It just disappeared. So I think this is going to disappear, but I am worried about what the replacement are, because the people who want to know it too, and they're even hurrying it on, are those people who want to disrupt the streets and bring this to an end. So to me, it's an intellectual fight. It's getting the ideas out. Even when I see people like you out there getting out a message, and you're not even frightened to use the words of liberty. That's what we need. And now. People, just think of all those restaurateurs in Italy. Thousands and thousands of times, enough is enough. We're open for business. And I think that can happen. And so I think of people now, like the Mises Institute. I think Lou Rockwell's done a fantastic job. And I did do a little bit of campaigning in the presidential campaign, and sort of was surprised anybody cared. So young people frequently would come up to me after and say, oh, I'm excited about this. So what do I do? Tell me what I do. Should I run for office and all that? And I said, do whatever you want to do. And so many have. You might not have been in that category, but you did what you want to do, and now you have a voice. It's an intellectual problem. It's an ideological problem to get an answer out and a message out, because things don't happen out of the clear blue. And the people on the streets didn't just think it up. And, I tell people it's ideology that's important. What about when these wars start? Why do they support? Why do they get started? I said, young people in America don't get together with the young people in Europe or Asia and talk to each other and say, you know what, we're 18 now. Wouldn't it be neat if we had a war? Because let's go ahead and start a war. They're the last people that want a war. And yet, the ideology of Keynesianism and socialism and welfareism, because government is force. The bigger the government, more force it is. That's why I'm so strongly in favor of gun control of the people in governments. We need to regulate their guns, because the gun is used to impose the system on us. No matter what they do and tell us, and all the programs that are coming are always enforced with government guns. And that's the kind of a force that we have to resent. But defensive force is, of course, obviously proper and necessary in a free society.
Yeah, you gave me a couple of ways to go there. So first, on the force part of it, I mean, have you seen the images coming out of D.C. the last couple of days? 25,000 troops on the ground, walls being built. I mean, basically a ghost town. It's just unbelievable.
That's to scare the people and tell people who's really in charge. And the other people, the ones who are there, their propaganda stunt went perfectly. Because when I say this is one of those risky things you don't say on the internet. People aren't supposed to realize it. But it was related to Donald Trump and the people that support him. But, the ruthlessness, I just don't believe it. I may be wrong. And I think it's up for discussion. I just wish they'd allow more investigation, whether it's for the election or what happens under these conditions. But the whole thing is there was a use of force, but it compared to what happened when they marched into the Capitol, compared to the armed forces that we see now, how about the 250,000 plus bureaucrats who carry a gun to enforce all the regulations, and collect the taxes and tell us what to do? I mean, there's hundreds of thousands carrying guns. That's not a good excuse for claiming that we have a free society. At the same time, We have to get rid of the Second Amendment. The problem is the people have too many guns. Well, I think we have too much government. I wouldn't decide that we can have the bureaucracy and no guns in the government. We need a lot less people there. We should have a much smaller bureaucracy, and it should it should be automatic that they shouldn't be carrying guns to enforce laws that shouldn't even be on the books.
You are speaking my language. So you mentioned that I'm not afraid to say the word liberty. I describe myself at this point as a radical freedom extremist. So there you go. But to even have these conversations online, I mean, the way you said the thing about the election, just for a sec, that you would have just liked more investigations or whatever. Even that, that doesn't seem incendiary to me or anything else. It's getting harder and harder to even say, okay, I just want to have a discussion about that, not even say that there's something wrong.
Yeah, that's all we should be asking for, because we believe we can stand up against their ideas. What about me as a physician and somebody in politics, and then we look at coronavirus, and the worst thing you can do is take a medical position that contradicts the people who want the lockdown. Well, you can get into a lot of trouble with that, and yet science has settled it. Even today, I think I mentioned in my program, science had trouble settling the fact that they thought the Earth was flat. People lost their lives. People lost their lives over that. And in medicine, since I've studied medicine, there's been a lot of things in medicine that were wrong. They contradicted. Even some of the things that I was taught in the 1950s about obstetrics turned out not to be right. We used to have a saying, once a C-section, always a C-section. But it took somebody else. It took people who were not in the official medical profession to challenge those things. That's what we want. We want challenge and competition and ideas, and we have to be able to discuss it. When you can't discuss it, that becomes the problem. It isn't whether I'm right or somebody else is wrong about how you take care of a virus, and because there are two different ways to do it. Anywhere from build up an industry that can make a couple bucks on vaccines or whatever. But you should have the discussion, and that's what they're preventing. That's why, Dave, keep it going. You have to stay on there, and I hope you build a big audience.
That's the plan, my friend. All right, I have one more for you, and then we're going to go to, it's the first time I've ever done it. I normally don't do audience questions, but I just knew how many people were going to want to ask you things, so I figured we'd grab one. But you've hit on this a little bit. You talked about what's going on in Italy now with all 50,000 restaurants opening up, and people are just saying enough's enough. So I know your feelings on the lockdown. Anyone watching this can figure out your feelings on lockdowns. But are you surprised how quickly everyone gives up freedoms, gives up the ability to leave their houses, gives up their ability to make money and go to work and do all the things that give us dignity and purpose, and that we just continually, they 2 weeks to flatten the curve, it's literally almost a year later at this point. Does that concept, does that shock you or not at this point?
Well, it bothers me, and it's annoying, but I'm not totally shocked by it. I am impressed how pervasive, these doctrines, which have been preached for 30, 40, 50 years in our universities, that's where the source of all this comes from. So I expected it, but I was impressed with how pervasive, how worldwide it's been, especially dealing with the coronavirus. But that to me, I just flipped the coin. I say, yes, but I've already made the example of the Soviet system. It ran out of steam. And how can what they're doing now? Do you think interventionism is going to be will be made universally acceptable and wonderful? People are going to be happy, and the poor won't be poor, and there will not be a division of wealth that we have. No, that's going to be around, and that's what will end it. It's this maldistribution of wealth, and this is certainly related to the monetary system. That is here, and that's why it's going to force a change. The big thing is, you'll say, well, for sure? How do you know it might not get worse? Well, That's the problem. It may get worse before it gets better. But I tell you what, the only thing that can address it will be address it in intellectual terms and show that, and we hear the words, what do you guys want to do? You want to live like Venezuela? But that's not allowed to be on the news, You can't talk about that. And that's a terrible thing to say. But people will come around to that, and they're going to realize it. But it's up to us, and it's up to other people, because there may be a few people listening to us today that doesn't have their own program. They say, oh, yeah, that's Dave guy. He's a brilliant guy, and he has a great program on, and he gets on TV. And they say they throw up their hand. But I'll tell you what, I've seen some young people come up with amazing ideas and be more creative than they ever even knew they were. But they have to have a belief in something, and they have to be energized to do something, and they do have to have a bit of confidence that ideas are important, and good ideas can stamp out bad ideas.
Well said, well said. All right, so here's the audience question for you, and then I know you've got a busy day, so we're going to let you go. I'm going to get you in a little hot water, probably with your family at the moment, because the question from Cody G. in the Rubin Report Locals community is, will Dr. Paul encourage his son Rand to run for president in 2024?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'd tell him what I just told all the young people that ever came up to me. Do whatever you want. I know my son, and I don't know where he learned it, but he's very independent-minded, and he's very well read, and he knows a little bit about politics. Because I think I hinted to him when he decided to step into the political arena, he was going to run for the Senate. And I sort of gently said, are you sure you want to run for the Senate to start off with? Shouldn't you take it a little bit easy? No, I know better than that. So my answer is I'm very libertarian on that. He'll make up his own mind. But I will have to admit that when all things are equal, if he does run and we aren't winning the fight that we're talking about here, it would worry me a bit, because conditions are so lousy. And I've seen, especially the anti-war faction in this country, it's a very deadly challenge. The pro-war, pro-peace candidate, the Kennedys or Martin Luther King, is very, very dangerous in that sense. So, but otherwise, everything we do in life is a little bit dangerous. So, and Rand would say, yeah, I've already been shot at on the baseball field. I've already had my neighbor attack me. So he would say it's already dangerous. And I guess he was accosted in the streets of Washington. No, the answer is he'll do what he has. He'll do what he feels he has to. And that's what everybody should do. But Rand, I know, has studied hard and understands the morality of liberty. But that's what I tell young people. Know your subject. Study it. Look into the Mises Institute. Know exactly why free markets are helpful to poor people. That in itself is a message that has to be heard. But today, the poor people still believe it's because the rich people are there. It's all because of that free enterprise system. No, it's very much intertwined with corporatism, where the corporations have joined the government to abuse our rights. And that is the challenge. But the information is there. The internet is there. You're working on it yourself, Dave. And this is important, that the internet be preserved and new ideas come up. I saw something today about Bitcoin might be an old-fashioned idea. I said, I'm just trying to learn what Bitcoin's all about. They would say Bitcoin might be an old idea. So there's always going to be a new idea. Technology is great. One of my biggest laments that I've written about is technology is fantastic. When you think of just the 20th century, with all the war and all the killing, just think about how many people's lives have been improved. Just think of the people who are, causing all the crisis in this country and are causing riots and everything else because their rights have been abused. That category of people, the very, very poor in this country, are probably wealthier than 90% of the population of the world in 100 years. There's still a lot there. But my big beef is technology is tremendously helpful. The modern age, industrial revolution, and now the computers really, really does help tremendously. But my beef is that so much of it ends up in the control of the government,
Yep.
and the government uses this technology to fight wars and build new weaponry. And that's where the real threats come from and the real problems that they have. But the technologies there could improve the standards of the people. And until we understand the importance of a non-aggressive society, no aggression against other people, no lying, cheating, stealing, or killing. One rule there, and the world would be a real blessing for the most number of people ever known.
Congressman, you know how to end an interview like a pro. And I just want to say, truly, this was an absolute thrill. I have no doubt that we'll do it again, either on these pipes or hopefully in person. Maybe I'll get to Texas soon enough and we could do it in person. But you've been fighting the fights that I think are the right fights for a long time before me. And you opened up the world so a guy like me could get interested in this movement. And I'm just thrilled to chat with you and be fighting alongside you. So thanks for taking the time. And we'll talk soon.
Great to be with you.
All right, guys, I'm going to continue for a few more minutes. I know we probably could have done 6 hours with Ron Paul, obviously. And it's like, man, he's been doing this stuff just forever and led that Tea Party movement that was called racist and bigoted and teabaggers and all of the awful things they said about them on CNN, and they were insurrectionists. You may remember that, what was it, about 10 years ago? I think it was 2008, right? That was when he ran for president, if I'm not mistaken. And there was massive rallies, and they were just, all the worst things were said about these people. Does that sound kind of familiar? And really all these people cared about was the Constitution and freedom and liberty and the rest of it. And it's like his message is still as clear as it's ever been. And I really love this idea that he said that is something that I've been trying to get out for the last few months here, which is that the bad ideas will crumble and the good ideas will win. Like if your ideas are wrapped up and we hire people not on their skill but on their skin color, or we're going to just grow at the ever-growing state and we're going to take from the people who produce and give to these other people, like those things will crumble. It's going to take time, and it's like, how bad can it get before it gets better? But the challenge for all of us, right, if you care about freedom at any level, if you care about liberty at any level, if you care about your own life, to live it the way you see fit at any level, it's like human ingenuity is the answer. And then we should have, and this is exactly what Ron Paul was talking about, we should have then those debates, right? We should be able to discuss all of this stuff, because obviously the pure conservative is going to have a little more desire for government than the pure libertarian. And by the way, I completely get all of you guys that say that Trump should have done something about big tech when he had the chance. That makes sense to me. That's not the pure libertarian perspective. Congressman Paul wouldn't even want that now, knowing that he was booted temporarily from Facebook last week. But what a rich place to have a conversation about what do you do if this giant structure is trying to crush all the competition? Can competition still exist? Like, that's a great debate to have. By the way, you can have that debate pretty openly and honestly with a lot of people on the right now. That's why I keep saying what I think the future of America, if it is to be free at any level, will be a sort of center-right future. You're going to have your traditional conservatives, then you're going to have the more libertarian wing of conservatism. That's where someone like me would fall. Then you're going to have your more religious conservatives. And if we can just sort of agree to disagree on, we don't have to fully believe absolutely everything the same on every little policy and regulation here, or this or that, or even abortion or whatever it might be, but we basically want to live in the same country, well, that'll be a hell of a lot better. So it's kind of everybody versus the wokesters, and I like our chances in that regard. Guys, real quick before we wrap, and then by the way, we'll be doing regular shows all week. Obviously, tomorrow is going to be quite a day politically. Hopefully it will be completely peaceful. Let's talk about ideas. Let's not kill each other. Let's not bring political violence. Let's not condone political violence. And our work is just starting. It really is just starting. So anyway, we're live all week, and then we've got a panel on Friday, which I'll tease the guests tomorrow. How about that? Because we've got 2 of the 3 settled. We're waiting on one more, but it's going to be a great panel. And we're going to try to do those Friday panel shows going forward, because I know you guys loved it and I actually fully enjoyed it. And then maybe there'll be some other surprises throughout the week. But real quick, guys, it's a new year. And if you're looking for a new protein bar, I've got one in my hand. What are the chances? Built Bar is the secret to keeping you both to keeping both of your New Year's resolutions, eating healthier food and eating tastier food. Built Bars are low calorie, low sugar, high protein, high fiber, great for the keto diet. I can actually lose or maintain weight while indulging in a yummy treat. Healthy has never been this delicious. Built Bars taste like candy and come in 18 amazing flavors, as you know. I like that, cookies and cream. Built Bars are covered in 100% chocolate, include both nut and nut-free flavors, and are soft and easy to chew. After the holidays, we still want to indulge, but we also need to shed those additional pounds, myself included, which is why Built Bars are the perfect alternative to pie for the health-conscious guy. And in the coconut almond flavor, you're getting 18 G's of protein, 180 calories, 5 grams of sugar, and 5 net carbs. Not bad. Don't give up on your resolution. Built Bar is the answer. Go to BuiltBar.com and use promo code Rubin to get 20% off your next order. Use promo code Rubin for 20% off at BuiltBar.com. And that's all I got for you today. Join us at locals.rubinreport.com. We're building something really great, guys. And trust me, everybody's reaching out to me right now, right? Like this Parler thing, which I would have preferred not happen, the sort of implosion of Parler. And of course, I do believe it will come back and they'll have some more security and tighten some things. It's actually, at the same time, though, created a great opportunity to shine some light on locals. We're getting a lot of good press. I'm getting calls from VCs and all sorts of money people that want to help us grow. Our growth is like hockey sticking right now. And we're building small communities where you own the stuff and you control the content, and there's a paywall, so there's no bad actors, there's no hate or any of it. It's like social media, but completely the reverse. All right, guys, join me at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern tomorrow for my live reaction to the Biden inauguration, and Lord only knows what else will happen. Have a great day, everybody.